Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Chat with Corey, brought to you by Kokomo Auto World, the place to go. Reach out to my buddy Chad Wetz back there. If you're looking for a new ride, need some new wheels, need a new whip, Kokomo Auto World, the place to go. And hit up my friend Chad Wetz if you're looking for that new video. Last week we had a co-host, and my son Ben Scott was here. We did something a little bit different. This week it's going to be just a little bit different as well. We've talked a lot of professional sports and high and college sports, and we've touched base on some racing, but this week's episode is going to be solely dedicated to the Indiana High School Athletic Association's State Boys Basketball Tournament. I have a strong passion for Indiana high school basketball, and we're gonna go through some things. We're gonna go through some nuggets of history at different things and things that intrigue me and things that's kind of shaped my passion. So much so that I played high school basketball, I played college basketball, and then coaching for 28 years and just being an Indiana high school basketball fan. So that's going to be today's topic. It's really going to be our only topic. We're going to have different segments within that topic. So we'll just start with my story. We'll do this in reverse than what I have on my sheet here. We're going to start with my story, and then I'll go into the other things that have caused me to create, develop, enrich this love of Indiana high school basketball. My mother's father, Jack Snyder, was a star for Muncie Central in the 1940s. And many times we would sit at my great-grandmother's house or my grandparents' house, and we would read through newspaper clippings of my grandpa playing high school basketball, high school baseball, or not so much baseball, there were a couple, and high school football. He was an outstanding high school football player, by the way. But he was a very good high school basketball player in the rich history of the Muncie Central Bearcats. Graduating in 1944, Grandpa had many shining moments, one of those being a three-quarter court shot to beat the mighty Newcastle Trojans, and they carried him off the Muncie Fieldhouse floor. People would tell us stories. He would tell us stories. I read some stories. I've done some read some newspaper articles about him, and it was just very cool to me as a young man who was intrigued by athletics to have this grandfather who was a bit of a high school hero on the hardwood and on the gridiron, and it's just cool to see how that path has been transitioned down generations. Grandpa would tell stories of playing at Anderson and playing different places. One of my favorite stories, I believe it was at Anderson in the old wigwam, not the wigwam that still stands today. There was a previous wigwam that burnt down in the late 1950s, early 1960s. Grandpa tells the story that he was running a fast break and he ran out wide as you teach or as you're taught to run the fast break, and a spectator sitting on the front row stuck out his foot and tripped Grandpa. The referee walks over to Grandpa and says, "Yeah, don't run too close to the sideline. They do that a lot here." The referee said that. So that was one of my funny stories, listening to Grandpa, and he would tell that story, and just reading about his tremendous high school athletic career and hearing stories. I've always been a Muncie Central fan because of that. Muncie Central would arguably be the dream job for one who has been in coaching. Had a few opportunities to be a part of the staff before, but I just haven't ever taken anyone up on that. So it's cool to reminisce, think about my grandpa Jack Snyder playing for the Muncie Central Bearcats in the 1940s, rich tradition. And him and my grandmother's uncle, he used to joke too that the night that the Bearcats lost to Milan, the game that the movie Hoosiers was built on, Grandpa said they almost bet the car that night, but they decided against it. So that's just funny to hear those stories, and that started getting me intrigued, started getting me wondering about this game of Indiana high school basketball. Then we fast forward to the late 1960s and the early 1970s. My late father Joe Scott, he was a I would say a star for the Delville Broncos, averaging 17 points a game as a senior in 1971. Uh, Due to the fact that he fouled out an awful lot, he probably could have averaged a few more points, and we'll get to that more in a second. But I've read articles online of him having big nights at Bryant or in the county tournament or in the sectional, and I have a letter somewhere that he got to play college basketball at a small D3 school in Delaware. I have the letter in my possession to this day. He played in the Anderson sectional, in the Anderson Wigwam. And he tells the story either his junior or senior year, I don't remember which. He would tell the story that they were playing Frankton. Frankton had won one game, Delville had won one game, and they played the first game on, like, let's say Tuesday night, and there was 8,500 to 9,000 people there for two teams that won one game each, and one of them would go on to win their second game of the year, which would be the Delville Broncos. I find that interesting. It was, as a little boy, my dad would take me to games. We'd go watch the Delville Broncos. We would watch, we would see, my dad's coach was John Craig at Delville. We would see his son, Dale Craig, play, and I thought it was the coolest thing that my dad knew Dale Craig's dad. There were other players, Chris Chambers, Dean Sipes, Chris Wilson. They were guys that were, 8, 10 years older than me growing up, but my dad knew their dad, and that they were celebrities to me. And so we started going to games. I remember games at a very young age. I remember going to Delta for the county tournament in the 1980s when the mighty Broncos of Delville won 4 in a row. I can remember going to the Muncie Fieldhouse to see the Delville Broncos play Muncie Southside in the Muncie Fieldhouse after our great coach, Coach Everett Gates, had a car wreck, and they wheeled him out in a wheelchair to coach that game, and the crowd going wild. I can remember Brad Slagle playing for the Delville Broncos and being called Brad the Bear Slagle on the radio. My dad grew up with the Slagles, and they were very good to me in my childhood as well. So my dad's love of sports and high school basketball at Delville, my grandpa's love of sports and high school basketball at Muncie Central and high school football. My dad was a tremendous baseball player as well as a basketball player as a young man. Those things helped fuel this fire. I can remember going to games with my dad, and we'd sit with Rob Hale. His brother Tim was playing in the early 1980s for Delville. How cool was it? I can remember sitting in the bleachers at Delville, asking my dad what this signal means, and he would explain to me travel and what travel was. When I was 5 years old, my dad hung a basketball goal on our garage in the driveway. It was only about 7 or 8 feet high. All the local neighborhood kids who were older, who some were high school age, would come to our house and play. My dad told them, we don't care that you come play, but if Corey's out here, he has to play sometimes as well. And they were not easy on me. They blocked my shot. They would foul me. But at the same time, they would encourage me, and it made me a better player going forward in my own career. I got to have a very strong career at Delville High School. I'm very proud of that, my time spent playing for the Broncos. All I ever wanted to do as a little boy was be a Delville Bronco. That's all I ever wanted to do. Just play on that basketball court out there as a Delville Bronco, and that's what I got to do. When I was in the second grade, Delville won the Mighty Anderson sectional. I can remember we were in the kitchen with my cousins listening to the radio, playing Nerf basketball in the kitchen. I remember we were in our pajamas and we had to get dressed to go to Delville High School for the pep session. I remember the team returning to the high school, riding on top of fire trucks, sirens blaring, and we go into a packed gymnasium to celebrate the mighty Broncos winning arguably the strongest sectional in the state at the time, the Anderson sectional, beating the Anderson Indians on their home court. Those things helped shape my love and passion of Indiana high school basketball. Like I said earlier, I got to experience a very solid career and I enjoyed it. And then I got later in life, I got to become an assistant coach for the Broncos. The first year that we had class basketball in 1998, we lost in overtime, and I was hooked as a coach. Tri-Central had a player named Corey Dunn. He hits a 35-footer at the buzzer, three-pointer to send it to overtime, and we lost in overtime that year, the first year of class basketball. And thanks to Coach Rob Curry for allowing me to be on that staff, work with him and Tim Hurd and Aaron Ballinger on that staff. So that began my love for coaching. As the love continues, I began to do some research and read articles and be in chat rooms and follow other programs around the state of Indiana. I would later become the freshman coach at Delville, later become the junior varsity coach at Delville, and then finally I'd get the opportunity to lead the Delville Broncos. We won two sectionals back-to-back in 2008 and 2009. Forever grateful to those guys. Forever grateful to those guys. We moved on to Anderson Prep, where we did not have a great success rate. Maybe I'm not a very good coach because I had the right guys at Delville and maybe not so much of the right guys at Anderson Prep, and they maybe didn't have the right coach. So I didn't have the great coaching record as others, but we did win those two sectionals in 2008 and 2009. And then the thing that I love as much as anything, I got to pass my passion and my love down to my two sons, Jack Scott and Ben Scott. I got to coach both of them in high school basketball. Although I coached for 28 years, those 6 years coaching them, nobody can ever take that away. Jack would go on to score 1,000 points and have over 700 career rebounds. Ben would go on to average double digits as a senior, average over 10 points a game, and dunk in a game at 6 foot tall. Those memories, those things are arched in my brain, all because of my grandfather, my father, and stories from my mom and aunts and grandparents were passed down to me, causing this love and passion for Indiana high school basketball. My uncle, my dad's oldest brother, would play for the Broncos in the 1960s. My sister would play for the Broncos in the 1990s. Another cousin would play for the Broncos. She played for the Broncos late in the early 2000s. Cousins had played. Family has played. I have played. My boys have played. My nephew just finished his career at Jay County, losing in the sectional on Tuesday night. And he just had an outstanding senior year. When we were struggling, my wife began to tell me when we were struggling, when we first come to Anderson Prep Academy, she goes, you got to decide what your wins look like. And at that point, we started thinking about our wins are going to be about making memories and building relationships. And the stories I have that we could tell and the memories I have from this great game leads me into this next part of our story here. In 1911, the IHSAA had their first state boys basketball tournament. There have been many stories, there are many things that have intrigued me, many things that have caught my attention. As the Broncos in the mid-1980s was a strong, small school power, there was a school down in southern Indiana called Lyons and Marco High School. I'm not sure if they're all in Greene County, but that school now is consolidated into part of what is now White River Valley High School. White River Valley has had very strong teams over the years, but L&M, as they were affectionately known in 1983 and 84, would go 23-1 and lose in the regional. In 1985, they would lose to Southridge, another smaller school, maybe not quite as small as L&M, in the semi-state. L&M had two stars in Jeff Oliphant, whose dad was the coach, and he'd go on to play at IU, and Tony Patterson, who would go on and play at Purdue. That school of L&M would have 132 kids in the top four grades, 9 through 12. Small schools can compete with the big schools. Indiana high school basketball. It's so special. As I mentioned before, the Anderson sectional was a big thing. Anderson's season ticket holders were more than what the tickets would ever be allotted for to get into the lottery to get your session pass for the whole sectional where you could go to every game. It was a sellout virtually every year from the 1940s through the early 1990s. People from Anderson would get season tickets at Delville and Pendleton and Frankton and LaPel and Alexandria and Elwood, just so they could get in that lottery and get a session ticket, to the sectional through their season pass holder. Buying that season pass and maybe never attending a game at one of the smaller county schools just to get into the great sectional. That was the Anderson sectional. Back in the day, Delville started its history in the Muncie sectional from 1923 to 1964. Before that, they played with the Henry County schools, 1921 and 1922. In 1964, the Delville Broncos went to the Anderson sectional. They would play in the Anderson sectional till 1990. This guy was a seventh grader. I would begin a run of attending sectionals at the Muncie Fieldhouse for the next 5 years. That's where we played our sectional, was at the Muncie Fieldhouse. Circle that back. My grandfather played in the Muncie Fieldhouse. He was in attendance when I played in my sectionals. My dad played the Delaware County Tournament in the Muncie Fieldhouse. My sister played in the Muncie Fieldhouse. My cousins played in the Muncie Fieldhouse. My nephew and my sons have played in the Muncie Fieldhouse. It's all full circle. Indiana high school basketball. It's a tradition like anything. It's the biggest tradition of sports in my life is Indiana high school basketball. Small towns can win. There are Amish communities in part of the state where the Amish show up to support the local high schools. I have attended sectionals and regionals and semi-states all over the state of Indiana. This week, once again, I'll be headed either north or south. I'm going to find the best sectional possible on Friday night and Saturday night. Right now, the tentative plan is to try to find my way to sectional 62, arguably the best small school sectional in the state of Indiana, 1A sectional. Lagodi, Bar Reeve, North Davies, they have all been extremely strong in their careers. They winning sectionals in single class before we went to class. We'll get to that in just a moment. Lagodi's won 39 sectionals, 9 of them in the class era. North Davies has won 7, all in the class era. Orleans High School has won 16 sectionals, 11 of them in the class era. Bar Reeve High School has won 18 sectionals, 13 of those in the class era. Washington Catholic, who is a struggling program right now but once a rich program, they have won 5 sectionals, 0 in the class era. And Medora, another struggling program, very, very small school, they have 1 sectional championship to their name. Vincennes, Reveille, Shoals, they're also in that sectional, and neither one of them have ever won a sectional. just as many other programs around the state have not. Many small schools, many large schools. Kokomo, I think, is the leader in the state of Indiana with 77 sectional championships. The sectional, folks, is the first round of our state tournament. After the sectional, we have 64 winners. Those 64 winners will go on to the regional round in single class. We would whittle it down to 16 teams that would go on to the semi-state. And then we would have our very own Final Four. Yes, Final Four. March Madness, the NCAA men's and women's college basketball tournament, was designed after the Indiana high school basketball tournament. Unfortunately, in 1997, politicians and others got involved, and small schools were just tired of maybe getting beat by the much larger schools and not really having a chance to win the sectional because all schools played all in the same tournament. By this point, a lot of states had taken the enrollment size of their schools and made classes. You're in this class because your enrollment is 0 to 300, so you would be in the 1A class. Whatever that number is now is a little bit higher than that. You're in the 2A class, you're in the 3A class, you're in the 4A class. A lot of states were already doing that. Indiana was hanging on to not doing that. Coach Everett Gates, of my head coach, was totally against it. He fought against it. He campaigned against it, wanting them to remain the last state in the country to have single class basketball. Coach Everett Gates was once quoted as saying, "I'll take winning the Anderson sectional over winning a class state championship any day." Coach Gates was a part of a coaching staff in Ohio who won a class state championship, but in Indiana, he won the hardest sectional in the state, arguably. Well, since 1997, we've had our 4 classes. It is our tradition. I'm not going to sit here and say we should go back because we're not going back. I do not really want any changes because I want tradition of Indiana high school basketball. Indiana high school basketball class edition allowed me to become a sectional champion 2 times with the Delville Broncos, my alma mater. Nobody could ever take that away from me. So the argument of class is better, single class is better, who cares at this point? It's still Indiana high school basketball. I'm going to get out there this week. I'm going to find a packed gym. I'm going to try to go to a couple gyms where people are worried about them selling out. And really, honestly, those places don't ever really sell out. Everybody's just worried. Oh, it's going to sell out. It's going to sell out. No, it's not. No, it's not. Relax, everybody. They're not going to be selling out. They might, but let's just pump our brakes. It'll be pretty close to a sellout. If you've ever been to a sectional or a regional or a semi-state in the state of Indiana, maybe even the state finals, but more sectional, regional, semi-state, and the whole town is there, the atmosphere is phenomenal. I get goosebumps thinking about it. It's a very special thing to be a part of. Whether you're a fan, whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, whether you're a cheerleader, whether you're a manager, or maybe you're a student or a teacher at one of those schools, it means something to your community. I was honored to play where my father played. I was honored to coach where my father and I played, along with my sister and all those other family members. I can remember my sister being on the varsity as a freshman, dressing varsity as a freshman at Delville High School. She didn't really play in the rotation, but she did dress for the sectional as a freshman. And I was kind of, my older sister's dressing. She's pretty good. So that's a pretty cool feeling. But all these years, at 48 years old, and all these years of coaching and playing and going to games and talking about it with my father, and now I talk about it with my 2 sons. Indiana high school basketball is a very special thing. I was fortunate enough I got to do it. Some people coach because they love the game. Some people coach because they just want to win. Some people coach because they want the status of being a head coach. And some of us coach because we just wanted to be a part of the nostalgia of Indiana high school basketball. We won those 2 sectionals. I got to coach my 2 boys. I don't know if I was successful. I don't know if I was a good coach or not. But I got to do something that was very cool and not everybody did get to do. And that's the coach in the state tournament in the state of Indiana. As a head coach, as an assistant coach. And nobody can take those 2 things away from us. And they can't take the sectional championships away from us. And most importantly, they can't take the fact that I coached my boys in the sectional away from us. It is sectional week, people. There are 64 sectionals in the state of Indiana. If you're looking for one, get out there and find one to attend. If you need a new car, Kokomo Auto World, place to go. Reach out to my friend Chad Wetz. Find those things you enjoy to do. If you don't enjoy the Indiana High School Basketball State Tournament, I don't care. Go find something you do enjoy to do. I don't care what it is. As long as it's legal. Enjoy yourself. Find those things you enjoy to do. Be good to people. And support your local high schools. Support your local high school athletics. It's a pretty cool deal. It'll create memories and relationships that last a lifetime. And it's just something that I love, and I hope I rambled a little bit. I hope you can understand why I love it. So get out there, support your local high school, support your local athletes, support your local coaches. Maybe take a friend or a family member with you, and enjoy every moment. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.